It was supposed to be the perfect end to a summer. The old beach house, forgotten by time and buried in the encroaching dunes, had always been our secret haven. This time, I ventured alone, needing the solitude after a tumultuous year. The house was just as I remembered: weathered shingles, salt-stained windows, and the relentless sea breeze that seemed to carry whispers from the deep. As dusk crept along the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of red and purple, an unease settled in the pit of my stomach. The beach, usually a comforting presence, felt different that evening. The waves crashed with more fury, and the wind howled like mourning spirits. After a restless attempt at reading, I decided a walk along the shore might settle my nerves. The beach was desolate. The only footprints in the sand were mine, freshly imprinted and solitary. But as I walked, a strange phenomenon caught my eye. A second set of footprints appeared alongside mine, as though someone was walking beside me, unseen. The logical part of my brain reasoned it must be a trick of the light or remnants of someone else's earlier passage, but the depth and freshness of the print suggested otherwise. Each step I took, the accompanying set matched perfectly, never more than a stride away. My heart raced, and the back of my neck prickled with dread. Turning back to the house, the footprints continued to follow. By the time I reached the back door, I was in a near panic, slamming and locking the door behind me. Peering out the salt-scratched window, I saw that the footprints stopped at the edge of the porch, as if whatever accompanied me had waited there. I retreated upstairs to the supposed safety of my room, the house creaking around me. Trying to calm my nerves, I reminded myself that the isolation could play tricks on one's mind. But as darkness swallowed the light, the sound of footsteps emerged, this time from the attic above. Thump, thump, thump. The steady pace was deliberate, measured, as if someone was searching for something, or someone. The idea of someone hiding in the house was ludicrous, yet the fear that gripped me was palpable. I grabbed the old iron poker from beside the fireplace for protection, my hands trembling. As I stood, frozen in fear, the footsteps ceased, and a cold silence filled the house. Then, a new sound began, scratching against the attic floor, growing louder, more frantic. In a moment of terror-fueled bravery, I flung open the door to the attic, the poker raised high. Nothing but old boxes and dust greeted me, the moonlight casting eerie shadows across the wooden floor. Just as I began to breathe a sigh of relief, a cold gust of wind blasted through an open window, carrying with it a tattered piece of paper that fluttered directly into my hands. It was a photograph, old and faded, but unmistakably a picture of me, standing by the shore. Except in the photo, a shadowy figure stood next to me, its face blurred and indistinct. Dropping the photo in horror, I raced from the house, not stopping until I reached the safety of my car. As I drove away, one last glance in the rearview mirror showed the silhouette of a figure standing in the attic window, watching me flee. The beach house remains empty now, and I've never returned. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the faint sound of footsteps outside my door, and I wonder if something from that house followed me home. I never believed the local tales of whispering shores, that is, until the night I was left with no choice. The beach, named for the soft, incessant murmurs that travelers claim to hear when the sun set, had always seemed an ordinary stretch of sand to me. That perception shattered on a moonless night when I, driven by a blend of skepticism and bravado, decided to camp there alone. The day passed without incident, and as dusk settled, so did a dense, choking fog. Setting up my tent near the edge where the sand met the rocky coastline, I began to hear it, the faint, eerie whispering that had given the beach its name. At first, it was like the sighing of the wind, but as darkness deepened, the whispers grew more distinct, more desperate. I tried to convince myself it was just the sound of the tide dragging over loose pebbles, or the call of distant nightbirds. But then, the whispers morphed into discernible words. Leave. Go back. They said, over and over, in a chilling, rhythmic cadence. Unease morphed into fear, yet my feet remained planted, as if the sand itself had taken hold. That's when the temperature plummeted, and the real horror began. From the mist, shapes started to materialize. Dark, fluid forms that seemed both part of the fog and distinct from it. They slithered and crawled toward the shore, their forms gaining solidity with every whisper that reached my ears. Frozen in place, I watched as one of the figures became clear. A woman, her skin pale and eyes hollow, clothes tattered and wet, clinging to her body as if she had just emerged from the sea. She stopped at the water's edge, turning her blank gaze upon me. Her mouth moved in sync with the whispers, a silent summoning. I felt an inexplicable pull toward her, my body moving against my will. As I stepped closer, the sand beneath my feet felt like the touch of cold hands, dragging me down. Panic surged through me, and I tried to pull away, but the grip was relentless. The woman's whispers became screams, piercing the night as she stretched her arms out toward me. The other shapes converged, surrounding me, their whispers turning into a cacophony of cries and moans. In a desperate act, I tore off my shoes, the sudden release allowing me to stumble backward toward my tent. Grabbing a flare gun from my pack, I fired it into the air. The bright, burning light shattered the night, and the figures recoiled, their forms dissolving into the mist as if burned away by the flare's brilliance. I didn't stop to watch them vanish. I ran, not stopping until I reached my car parked far from the beach. As I drove away, the whispers faded but never completely silenced, a haunting melody that follows me in my dreams. I know now that whispering shores hold secrets meant to be left undiscovered, and the voices in the fog are not just warning. They are a lure, calling to the souls brave or foolish enough to listen. In the forgotten stretches of Cape Hollow, a place shrouded in fog and local legends, I found the remnants of an abandoned village by the beach. My curiosity as a historian drew me to this eerie site, eager to unearth stories hidden beneath layers of time and sand. The village, once a bustling seaside community, had been deserted following a mysterious catastrophe in the early 1900s, leaving it a shell of broken homes and ghostly whispers. As I wandered through the dilapidated structures, the ocean's roar a constant backdrop, I felt a creeping unease. The air was thick with salt and decay, and every creak and moan of the wind through the ruined buildings seemed to carry voices of the past. It was as if the village itself was alive, watching me. Compelled by an unexplainable pull, I ventured toward the coastline where the ruins met the sand. There, jutting out from a particularly dense fog bank, was the old lighthouse, its once guiding light now dark, a silent sentinel overlooking the waves. Drawn to its isolation, I made my way through the swirling mist, the ground beneath my feet becoming increasingly soggy and difficult to navigate. Reaching the lighthouse, I noticed that despite its age and neglect, the door was slightly ajar, creaking softly in the wind. The air inside was musty, filled with the scent of mold and rust. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I started up the spiral staircase, my hand trailing along the peeling wall paint. At the top, the view was breathtakingly ominous. The ocean stretched endlessly, its dark waves crashing against the shore with relentless force. But it was not the view that caught my breath. It was the sound. From below, a soft, sorrowful singing drifted up the stairwell, a melody so haunting it seemed woven from the very mist. Frozen by a mix of fear and fascination, I listened as the song grew louder, clearer. It was a woman's voice, full of longing and despair, mourning something lost to the sea. My heart pounded as I crept back down the stairs, the compulsion to find the source of this lament overwhelming my better judgment. The singing led me outside, back into the fog, which now seemed to glow with an unnatural light. Following the sound, I found myself at the water's edge, where the figure of a woman appeared in the mist. Her back was to me, her dress a tattered relic swaying in the wind. She continued to sing, her voice blending with the ocean's roar. I called out, asking who she was, what she mourned. She turned slowly, her face obscured by strands of wet hair in the thick fog. As our eyes met, I saw her grief, her eyes hollow, endless like the sea. Her song was a curse, she explained, bound to the coastline, a lament for her husband, taken by the ocean's depths. Each note was a plea for his return, a plea that had never been answered. The realization of her sorrow, her eternal weight, chilled me to the core. I stumbled back, the urge to escape overwhelming. As I ran, her song echoed in my ears, a melody that I knew would haunt me forever. I left Cape Hollow behind that day, but the ghostly song of the lighthouse widow never left me. It whispers to me in the quiet moments, a sorrowful reminder of the sea's relentless memory.